Money isn't real. Here's why. Hey everyone, welcome back to Macro Mind.
Imagine pulling up to a drive-thru for a 99-cent double cheeseburger, reaching out your window and handing the cashier a heavy block of salt and a live flapping chicken. To actually produce that burger today, an enormous chain of labor has to happen first. Cattle must be fed, raised, and slaughtered, while wheat is grown, harvested, and heavily processed down to a fine white powder. For most of human history, after we settled down from hunting and gathering to farming, obtaining someone else's labor meant relying on direct exchange. Economists call the fatal flaw in this system the double coincidence of wants. If you make shoes and you're hungry for some freshly harvested wheat, you have to find a wheat farmer who happens to need footwear. If that farmer is instead looking for a cow, neither of you gets what you need. As populations grew and labor became more highly specialized, relying on perfect matches between buyers and sellers created a massive bottleneck. The daily logistics of survival became hopelessly gridlocked. To maintain a complex society, civilization required a universally accepted middleman, a placeholder of value that a farmer would accept for his wheat, trusting he could later trade it for a cow. The earliest solution was commodity money, using objects that possessed inherent, practical usefulness as a medium of exchange. Salt was highly prized because it preserved food. Roman soldiers were famously paid their wages in heavy blocks of it, which is the direct historical origin of the word salary. But commodities present logistical nightmares. Grains rot in storage, and hauling heavy minerals across long distances quickly drains resources. Societies experimented with slightly more practical items, like cowrie shells, which were easier to carry but still required constant tedious counting. Around 600 BCE, in a kingdom called Lydia, citizens began taking electrum, a naturally occurring mix of gold and silver, and smashing it into standardized, uniform discs stamped with a lion's head. By guaranteeing the exact weight and purity of each disc, merchants no longer had to pull out scales for every transaction. They simply relied on the authority of the government stamp. People stopped analyzing the raw material itself and started believing in the symbol. Eventually, maintaining international trade meant transporting thousands of pounds of metal across oceans and continents, creating a slow and dangerous logistical burden. Merchants adapted by locking their heavy gold in secure vaults and trading lightweight, ornately designed paper receipts instead. Citizens were no longer holding actual wealth in their hands, they were holding a written promise. By the late 20th century, technology pushed this abstraction further, stripping away paper entirely in favor of plastic cards. The transaction shifted from exchanging physical objects to verifying identity and updating a ledger. Today, decentralized digital ledgers operate entirely without central banks. Wealth is maintained and verified purely through cryptography and mathematics. Over millennia, physical trade has steadily evaporated from heavy stones and metals into weightless, invisible data. We have moved from handing over live poultry in the dirt to beaming ones and zeros across the planet in milliseconds. Which brings us to the core reality of modern economics. The currency we use today has absolutely zero intrinsic value. You cannot digest a dollar bill to sustain yourself, and you cannot construct a waterproof shelter out of Bitcoin. It functions completely on the premise that billions of complete strangers must collectively agree to hallucinate its worth. This shared imaginary narrative allows us to trade our time and highly specialized skills with people we will never meet, confident that our effort will be recognized. When you pull up to that drive-thru and hear the electronic beep of a tapped card, you are executing a transaction made possible by 15,000 years of refined global cooperation. Every time we spend, we are participating in the greatest continuous act of collective trust in human history.